Herzlich willkommen zum Bookstock Festival 2022.
Herzlich willkommen an alle Menschen, die gerade da draußen im Stream live zugucken. Und natürlich auch willkommen, schönes, wundertolles Studiopublikum.
Schön.
Wahnsinn. Wir sind Mona und Tarkan und wir freuen uns sehr darauf, den heutigen Abend und auch den Abend morgen mit euch zu verbringen, denn das ist ein 2-Tages-Monster-Event, das hier Hugendubel auf die Beine gestellt hat. Und ja, Mona kennt ihr vielleicht schon. Die ist in der Bücherwelt, wenn man da unterwegs ist, vielleicht das ein oder andere Mal aufgetaucht.
Vielleicht die eine oder andere Person, die hier heute zuschaut, ist in der Bücherwelt.
Ich denke auch, da gibt es eine Schnittmenge. Du moderierst seit 5 Jahren jetzt schon eine Sendung bei 1 Live, eine Büchersendung, die heißt Stories. Du bist vor einem Jahr selber Autorin geworden, hast dein erstes Buch rausgebracht und machst auf Instagram auch sehr viel zu Büchern.
Ja, und Tarkan, du kennst die Buchwelt auch von innen, hat 2 Bücher schon geschrieben, tatsächlich, der Tarkan. Moderiert außerdem einen Podcast, der sehr erfolgreich ist, Gefühlte Fakten. Und seit kurzem Wissen macht A. So, jetzt haben wir unsere Lebensläufe einmal komplett. Alle Wissen macht A. Oh, Wissen macht A, toll. Ja, Wahnsinn. So, und wir 2, wir werden hier heute 9 Autorinnen und Autoren interviewen. Wir werden sie alles fragen mit eurer Hilfe, die zuschauen, zu ihren Büchern, zu ihrem Schreiben, zu ihrer Sicht auf die Welt. Und man kann es nicht anders sagen, diese 9 Personen, diese 9 Autorinnen und Autoren, die wir heute hier haben, das sind alles Headliner. Also im Prinzip feiern wir hier heute ein Festival voller Headliner. Das ist Besonderheit Nummer 1. Und für mich ganz persönlich ist es tatsächlich mein erstes Festival in diesem Jahr.
Meins auch. Ich habe einiges nachzuholen. Ich hoffe so auf den einen oder anderen Moshpit heute Abend. Vielleicht so eine Wall of Death oder so.
Ja, du kannst dann, geh du mal Moshpit machen oder komm erstmal mit aufs Sofa. Ja, wir setzen uns Idee. Und dann sprechen wir erstmal mit ein paar interessanten Menschen und dann machen wir den Moshpit. Dann später. Genau. So, ich glaube, ein Hinweis ist noch sehr, sehr wichtig an dieser Stelle, bevor wir tatsächlich loslegen. Und der bezieht sich vor allem auf die Menschen, die gerade über den Stream zuschauen.
Denn ihr könnt heute mitmachen, also ihr könnt, sobald ihr mal irgendeine Frage habt, die nicht nur laut am Rechner oder am Handy oder wie auch immer ihr zuguckt stellen, sondern in den Chat reintippen. Beim Livestream gibt es einen Chat, den haben wir im Blick und dann versuchen wir, so viele Fragen wie möglich von euch auch hier heute zu stellen.
Ja, da freuen wir uns sehr drauf und wir freuen uns jetzt auf unsere erste Gästin. Wir legen direkt los. Sie ist nicht nur mehrfache Bestseller-Autorin, sondern sie ist auch ausgebildete Buchhändlerin. Viele kennen sie vielleicht auch aus dem Internet. Sie hatte lange einen Booktube-Kanal und ist auch bei Instagram viel in Sachen Büchern unterwegs. Vor 3 Tagen, also ganz, ganz frisch diese Woche, ist ihr neuestes Buch rausgekommen. Das können wir mal hier direkt schön drapieren. So sieht es aus. Es heißt Crushing Colors, ist der 5. Teil der Fletcher University-Reihe und darüber möchten wir jetzt mit ihr sprechen. Es wäre so schön gewesen, sie jetzt hier reinzubitten. Leider ist uns ein positiver Corona-Test dazwischen geraten. Deswegen sage ich jetzt herzlich willkommen live. Klasse, fängt ja schon wunderbar an. Deswegen sage ich jetzt herzlich willkommen live von zu Hause. Einen ganz großen Applaus für TAMI Fischer. Tami, wie geht es dir? Es wäre so schön gewesen. Hier wäre dein Platz gewesen neben uns. Wie geht es dir?
Ich wäre so gerne da gewesen. Ich bin tatsächlich ein bisschen zugedröhnt, aber
wir alle hier, wir alle.
Schon.
Aber ist doch so, wie es sich gehört für eine Release-Woche, wollte ich jetzt sagen. Nee, aber wie
ja, klar.
Den können wir nicht sparen. Also, wie ist denn diese Woche? Weil es ist ja jetzt tatsächlich nicht dein erstes Buch, es ist dein 5. und trotzdem ist eine Release-Woche eine Release-Woche. Wie hast du die erlebt bisher?
Tatsächlich sehr entspannt. In der Vergangenheit bei den anderen Büchern war es immer relativ hektisch und dann habe ich auch wirklich den ganzen Tag im Internet verbracht, um mir, keine Ahnung, um auf Nachrichten zu antworten, jedes einzelne Bild zu reposten und ich hing eigentlich nur am Handy oder bin in gefühlt alle Buchhandlungen gerannt, um das Buchbaby zu besuchen und zu streicheln. Und es ist ein bisschen entspannter geworden bei diesem Buch jetzt. Ja, ich habe mit Freunden gefeiert, irgendwie entspannt was essen gehen und einfach genossen, dass das Buch jetzt so das Licht der Welt erblicken konnte.
Sag mal,
Also es war ein sehr, sehr schöner Release.
wie ist das eigentlich bei so einer Reihe? Weil das ist ja jetzt das 5. Buch, es ist offiziell das letzte Buch dieser Reihe und du wusstest ja jetzt schon beim Schreiben, diese Reihe hat Fans. Da sitzen also Menschen, die warten darauf, dass ein neues Buch rauskommt. Macht das die Sache einfacher beim Schreiben oder schwieriger, weil man ja auch weiß, ja, da sitzen Menschen und die haben jetzt auch Erwartungen an dieses letzte Buch?
Also inhaltlich an sich macht es keinen Unterschied. Natürlich ist aber auch so eine gewisse Erfolgserwartung da, auch von mir selber. Also man möchte sich ja auch immer weiterentwickeln und wenn man irgendwie gerade so eine Kurve hat, dann möchte man beim nächsten Buch nicht steil nach unten gehen. Also habe ich da schon einen perfektionistisch großen Anspruch. Und dann sind da natürlich auch so Sachen wie, ist das jetzt problematisch?
Mhm.
Ist das politisch korrekt? Und da mache ich mir sehr, sehr viele Gedanken. Ja, wie kann das und das aufgenommen werden? Also ich denke viel darüber nach, wie gewisse Entscheidungen, die ich für die Story treffe, letztendlich bei der Leserinnenschaft ankommen.
Mhm. Und weil du jetzt gerade perfektionistisch gesagt hast, ich habe gesehen auf deinem Insta-Kanal, da hast du, als du das Buch fertig geschrieben hast, ein Reel gepostet. Und da hat man auch kurz gesehen, dass du so eine Art Schreibtool nutzt, mit dem du trackst, wann du welche Seiten geschrieben hast. Und als du dann fertig warst, sprang da überall Konfetti rum und so. Ist das was, das dir einfach Spaß macht, das so zu tracken? Oder brauchst du das auch wirklich für den Schreibprozess?
Es ist mehr so eine Spaßsache. Also ich liebe Listen und alles, ja, was so mit To-Do, alles, was ich abhaken kann, ist super. Einfach weil das gibt noch mal so kleine Erfolgserlebnisse. Wenn man sagt: „Okay, ich schreibe jetzt ein Buch mit 400 Seiten“,
Mhm.
dann dauert das sehr, sehr lange, bis man dann wirklich fertig ist und sagen kann: „Jetzt habe ich es geschafft“, und also mir hilft das, mir dazwischen kleine Momente zu schaffen, wo ich Erfolgserlebnisse habe, und sei das jetzt, ich sag mal, nur ein Tagessoll an Worten, die ich schreiben wollte oder sowas.
So kleine Zwischenerfolge dann immer mal wieder feiern.
Mhm.
Ich, wenn ich das richtig verstanden habe, habe gehört, dass du tatsächlich dein allererstes Buch mit 11 Jahren angefangen hast zu schreiben. Ist das richtig?
Ja.
Mit 11 Jahren, da ist man in der 5. Klasse, okay. Ich habe dann so ein bisschen überlegt, was ich gemacht habe mit 11. Takan, wie viele Bücher hast du mit 11 schon angefangen? Das sind eigentlich irgendwie ganz woanders. Was hat dich da so hingezogen, auch so früh schon in diese Richtung?
Ich glaube, das liegt vor allem daran, dass ich immer auch ein Kind war mit dem Kopf in den Wolken. Ähm, ja, also ich saß ganz oft da und habe irgendwie nur leer in den Himmel gestarrt, weil ich mich irgendwelchen Geschichten wieder hingegeben habe. Und ja, dann hatte ich einen ganz abgefahrenen Traum und dann wollte ich den aufschreiben und so fing das dann quasi an. Und davor habe ich auch schon immer so kleine Sachen geschrieben. Oder ja, habe versucht, aus meinen Lieblingskinderbüchern Hörbuchfassungen zu schreiben. Ich hatte ja nicht
Also
so viele
quasi.
Freunde, merkt man, glaube ich.
Ja, die Bücher und die Geschichten waren deine Freunde. Und es ist ja auch
Ja,
einfach sehr,
total.
sehr
Also
viel
die
draus,
Bücher, ja.
draus geworden. Ne? Und also es war, habe ich jetzt gerade so dahergesagt, aber es, wenn man zum Beispiel jetzt diese Reihe liest, dann wächst man ja auch mit den Figuren tatsächlich zusammen. Und klar, es sind dann Figuren in einem Buch, aber im besten Fall, wenn eine Reihe gut erzählt ist oder ein Buch, dann fühlt es sich halt irgendwann an, als wären es Freunde. Und ich bin mir ganz sicher, dass es bei deinem Buch einigen so geht. Lass uns noch mal kurz, bevor wir gleich zu den Fragen kommen, die hier im Stream gestellt werden, noch ganz kurz über die Reihe reden, weil die spielt ja alle 5 Bände im selben Setting, in einem fiktiven Ort in Amerika, in der Fletcher University. Man begleitet eine Clique. Wie bist du da am Anfang rangegangen, um dieses Setting aufzubauen? Was war so, vielleicht so der Grundstein vom Buch und wie hast du diese Welt dann, in der sich die Reihe bewegt, dann kreiert?
Es fing mit den Figuren an. Also ich hatte am Anfang kein Setting, ich hatte kein Genre. Ich hatte ausschließlich meine Protagonistin Ella in Band 1 und den Love Interest Chess. Und ja, es ging dann wirklich Satz für Satz und beim Schreiben hat sich das dann irgendwie fast schon ergeben. Und ich habe sowieso schon immer gerne New Adult gelesen. Das war, als ich glaube 2017 habe ich das erste Kapitel geschrieben. Da waren vor allem die Klassiker wie ja, Jaylin, also Jennifer Armentrout, Cora Carmack, so die Elle Kennedy, das sind so die Urgesteine vom New Adult, sag ich mal. Ja, und dann habe ich da angefangen Und auf einmal dachte ich so, ja, jetzt braucht sie noch ein paar beste Freundinnen. Und naja, wäre doch cool, jeder Einzelnen ein Buch zu geben.
Achso, also es war gar nicht von
Ja,
Anfang
genau,
an
so
in
ging
deinem
es.
Kopf, dass du gesagt hast, ich mache jetzt eine Reihe aus 5 Teilen, sondern es hat sich schon aus dem ersten Band dann aber heraus recht früh ergeben, dass du da Lust drauf hättest.
Total. Also es ist ja sowieso, sobald ich eine Nebenfigur habe und die kriegt auch nur 2 Sätze mehr, denke ich mir schon so, mit wem könnte ich sie shippen? Ja, wo ist das Potenzial? Und so kam das dann.
Und jetzt bei diesem Buch, man ist jetzt gerade erst raus, aber du wurdest schon recht früh, glaube ich, mit sehr viel Lob überschüttet, hatte ich das Gefühl. Also es waren sehr, sehr viele positive Stimmen zu diesem Buch. Auch ganz viele habe ich gelesen, die geschrieben haben, es ist ihr Lieblingsbuch in der Reihe. Also vielleicht ganz kurz angerissen, es geht um Summer und Brick, 2, die sich am Anfang irgendwie gar nicht mögen und dann irgendwann doch vielleicht anfangen, sich zu mögen. Also wie gesagt, jetzt das 5. Paar in dieser Reihe. Würdest du das auch sagen, dass das dein Lieblingsbuch ist in der Reihe? Kann man das überhaupt oder ist das so diese, was ist dein Lieblingskind-Frage?
Es ist eigentlich die Lieblingskind-Frage, aber es ist schon mein Lieblingsbuch.
Let's be honest. Aber ist das bei dir immer so, dass das, genau, ist das immer bei dir das aktuellste Buch das Lieblingsbuch ist und dann kommt das nächste und hast du wieder ein neues Lieblingsbuch?
Ja, schon. Und hier kommt noch hinzu, einfach weil die Gefühle sind am aktuellsten, so am frischsten, weil man es gerade erst geschrieben hat. Und dadurch kommt das irgendwie. Und hier kommt noch hinzu, das ist der humorvollste Band. Und Haters to Lovers ist einfach mein Lieblingstrope. Es gibt nichts Schöneres als Schlagabtausche. Und ja, also ich mag das so gerne. Und allein deshalb ist das schon, glaube ich, mein Lieblingsband, weil es auch dann saß ich alleine in meinem Büro und habe vor mich hingelacht, während ich geschrieben habe, weil ich es selber schon so lustig fand.
Ja, und es ist auch so cool, dich jetzt davon erzählen zu hören, wenn man so richtig merkt, dass genau das stimmt, was du sagst, dass du da so eine Leidenschaft für hast. Und dann ist es ganz, ganz toll, dass Menschen, die so eine Leidenschaft haben, die dann auch finden. Tarkan, du hast gerade den Chat im Blick. Lass uns doch mal schauen, weil ich bin mir ganz sicher, dass da ganz schön viel gefunden.
Ja, eine Frage wurde schon beantwortet, nämlich die Lieblingsbuchfrage. Und ich fand sehr toll, dass die Allegorie total gestimmt hat, weil es genauso beantwortet wurde wie auch die Lieblingskindfrage. Nämlich kann man eigentlich nicht sagen, aber schon das. Es gibt aber auch noch, also einmal spezifisch die Frage nach dem Lieblingsbuch von denen, die du geschrieben hast, aber auch allgemein nach einem Lieblingsbuch. Die würde ich direkt mal an dich weitergeben. Abgesehen von deinem eigenen Werk, hast du ein Lieblingsbuch?
Es ist schwierig. Es sind dann meistens eher AutorInnen, die ich ganz großartig finde. Und ich lese sehr, sehr viel High Fantasy. Da ist zum Beispiel Patrick Rothfuss, den ich total toll finde, oder Robin Hobb.
Mit dem wir übrigens morgen auch noch sprechen, ne, muss man sagen.
Ja, also falls du eine Frage an Patrick, Pat, wie ihn seine Freundin nennt hast.
Wie Tarkan immer sagt, Pat.
Pat und ich, wir sind so erkenntlich. Keine Ahnung. Falls du eine Frage an ihn hast, leite ich die gerne weiter.
Kannst du gleich in den Chat schreiben.
Genau.
Das mache ich.
Entschuldigung, wollte ich nicht unterbrechen. High Fantasy, warst du dabei aufzuzählen?
Genau, also Sarah J. Maas lese ich auch sehr gerne. Und ja, das eigentlich ja doch Robin Hobb und Patrick Rothfuss, würde ich sagen.
Ich glaube, das schließt die zweite Frage hier auch schon ein, nämlich was dich so inspiriert beim Schreiben. Ich denke mal auch diese Autoren und Autorinnen, aber inspirieren dich auch noch andere Sachen? Also, keine Ahnung, vielleicht bestimmte Tiere oder so. Es kann ja alles inspirierend sein. Warum bin ich auf Tiere gekommen?
Das habe ich mir auch gerade gefragt.
Ich wollte halt zeigen, die Möglichkeiten sind endlos. Hast du noch was anderes, was dich inspiriert?
Ja, Koalas zum Beispiel.
Ja, die sind sehr inspirierend.
Side-Character, Koala 1, Koala 2, Koala.
Die kann man schön shippen.
Das wäre eigentlich echt schön. Oh Gott. Okay.
Wow. Da sind wir dann im Bereich Special Interest.
Ich kenn das Titel schon. Qualifiziert für Liebe. Sorry, also andere Frage. Hast du Schreibblockaden? Und wenn ja, wie gehst du mit Schreibblockaden um?
Ich glaube ja nicht an Schreibblockaden. Ich glaube, es gibt Sackgassen, wenn man sich verplottet hat sozusagen. Ja, wenn man zum Beispiel einen Absatz geschrieben hat und das ist eine falsche Richtung gewesen und dann muss man den Absatz eben nochmal löschen, auch wenn es weh tut und dann fließt der Text auch wieder. Oder wenn man zu perfektionistisch an die Rohfassung rangeht, weil das überarbeitet man ja sowieso noch irgendwie 5, 6 Mal. Und ich bin ja immer sehr dafür, sehr unordentliche Rohfassungen zu schreiben, um eben nicht in die Situation zu kommen, ins Stocken zu geraten. Demnach glaube ich nicht wirklich an Schreibblockaden.
Okay, aber du gehst mit ihnen um und es klang jetzt gerade so, als wenn du sagst, die gibt es bei mir nicht, aber du gehst einfach anders mit ihnen um. Habe ich das richtig verstanden, dass du die nicht als Schreibblockaden siehst, aber du hast schon Momente, wo du merkst, ich bin in einer Sackgasse.
Genau. Und
Okay.
aber ich höre immer ganz oft so, ja, und die Inspiration ist mir flöten gegangen. Meine innere Muse, die spielt jetzt nicht mehr mit. Ich muss warten, bis ich wieder erleuchtet werde, um weiterzuschreiben. Und da glaube ich eben nicht so dran.
Dann noch eine letzte Frage aus dem Chat. Und zwar, ich lese jetzt einfach vor, weil ich sie nicht zu 100% verstehe. Wer hat aus der Reihe deiner Meinung nach das größte Potenzial zum Book-Boyfriend / Girlfriend / Tier? Und warum? Nein, das Tier kam von mir. Also, wer hat aus der Reihe das größte Potenzial zum Book-Boyfriend? Was ist nochmal ein Book-Boyfriend?
Nee, ich glaube dann. Ja. Tami, du darfst das erklären, ja.
Ja, okay. Also ein Book-Boyfriend, wenn man einen Love Interest in einem Buch hat und den findet man selber so toll, dass man, dass das der Book-Boyfriend wird.
Okay, das
man
wird
ist
sehr
selber
komisch.
So in die Figur verliebt.
Ja, den dann zum Essen bei den Eltern mitzubringen. Mama, das ist mein neuer Freund. Hast du dich mal verliebt in eine Figur von dir?
Ja, ich glaube, das ist die Frage.
Sonst wird das nicht funktionieren.
Ja, deswegen stell dich
Ja, also wenn ich mich entscheiden müsste, würde ich auch Brigham aus Crushing Colors nehmen.
Okay. Einmal kurz Vibe-Check. Irgendwelche Brigham-Fans? Nein, das ist jetzt dann outet man sich, glaube ich. Aber doch.
Doch, guck mal.
Wer sieht ihn als Book-Boyfriend hier?
Tami, hier sind schon Brick-Fans, die hier sitzen, die sich sehr freuen. Ich habe noch eine allerletzte Frage, bevor wir uns von dir verabschieden und dich ins wohlverdiente Bettchen schicken zum Auskurieren. Glaubst du, dass Romance dein Genre bleiben wird? Oder hast du manchmal auch so das Gefühl, vielleicht könnte es irgendwann mal auch einen Thriller oder so mit Tami Fischer vorne drauf geben?
Ich schließe tatsächlich nichts aus, aber egal welches Genre es jemals wird, die Romance wird immer dabei sein, glaube ich.
Sehr gut, dann nehmen wir dich jetzt beim Wort. Ich glaube, da freuen sich auch sehr, sehr viele, dass du das genauso siehst. Wir wünschen dir auf jeden Fall jetzt erstmal ganz gute Besserung, ganz viel Spaß, suhl dich weiter im Gefühl, dass das Buch jetzt in der Welt ist und dann sind wir ganz gespannt auf alles, was noch von dir kommt. Einen ganz großen Applaus bitte für Tami Fischer.
Ja, Mensch, habe ich einiges gelernt. Book-Boyfriend, Book-Girlfriend. Und du hast Tami eben eine Booktuberin genannt. Das ist also jemand, der auf YouTube über Bücher spricht. Dann gibt es ja noch Bookstagram, da bist du recht aktiv.
Ja.
Und Bookstock, das ist einfach die Community innerhalb von TikTok, die eben Bücher bespricht. Bist du da auch aktiv?
Passiv-aktiv, würde ich sagen. Also ich habe einen Kanal und ich gucke mich da auch um, weil ich das Phänomen Booktalk wahnsinnig spannend finde. Das kam ja so vor 5 Jahren, glaube ich, kam dieser Hashtag zum ersten Mal auf und das auch zu sehen und zu vergleichen mit der Welt, in der ich mich bewege bei Instagram, was die Unterschiede sind, was Gemeinsamkeiten sind, was Zielgruppenunterschiede sind, was Buchgenreunterschiede sind, finde ich total spannend. Aber ich habe mich selbst noch nicht reingeworfen, weil ehrlich gesagt Instagram schon so viel Zeit einnimmt bei mir, dass ich richtig Angst habe, dass mich das auch noch total auffrisst. Sieht aber nach großem Spaß aus. Du?
Ich habe einen TikTok-Account, den habe ich mir sofort gesichert, weil ich wollte das Handle haben.
Ah,
also ich wollte nicht sagen, folgt mir auf TikTok, @t_koalalover97774 irgendwas. Das ist immer so demütigend, finde ich. Aber ich weiß auch noch nichts damit anzufangen. Ich habe es, aber bin noch nicht aktiv und ich glaube, da verpassen wir was. Und ich glaube, bin mir ziemlich sicher, dass das ein Riesending ist. Und ich glaube, wollen wir mal einen Test machen?
Ja,
es sind wahrscheinlich sehr viele Leute, die aktiv auf Booktalk sind. Könnt ihr einmal alle die Hand hoch machen?
Also
bitte?
alle, egal.
Einmal alle die Hand hoch.
Alle Hände hoch. Egal, ob
wir sehen euch.
Wir sehen
alle.
die Hände nicht hoch. Die Kameras sind auf euch gerichtet. Okay, und jetzt nehmen alle die Hände runter, die Social Media überhaupt nicht nutzen. Gar nicht Social Media. Genau, jetzt gehen noch ein paar hoch. Sehr gut. Spiel verstanden.
Ach, die Hand
Spiel
muss
verstanden,
hoch.
Hand hoch. Also alle, die kein Social Media nutzen, runter. Okay,
jetzt,
das waren nicht so viele.
Ja, alle, die kein TikTok haben, Hand runter. Ah, da gehen schon einige runter.
Schon und jetzt alle, die weder aktiv noch passiv bei BookTok unterwegs sind, runter.
Da gehen nur ganz wenige runter.
Ja.
Also noch einige Hände da. Ihr könnt wieder runternehmen, Dankeschön. Das war das Experiment.
Aber das war so, wie wir erwartet haben ungefähr.
Ja.
Der Bookstock sehr vertreten hier heute.
Auf jeden Fall. Und man darf oder kann das mittlerweile gar nicht mehr unterschätzen, weil auch ganz viele weltbekannte Autorinnen und Autoren von sich sagen, ja, ich habe einen Großteil meines Erfolgs auch TikTok zu verdanken. Und eine davon, die kommt jetzt gleich, die hier mit Sicherheit, alle, die eben die Hand hoch hatten, schon mal gesehen oder von ihr gehört haben. Sie ist die erste internationale Gästin des Abends. Das heißt, ich werde gleich ins Englische wechseln.
Achtung, Achtung.
Hiermit vor. Gib mir Mühe, in meinem Kopf klinge ich wie ein Lord, wenn ich Englisch rede. Und die Aussprache.
Tea?
Oh, like to dance. Aber sobald ich den Mund aufmache, naja, ich gebe mein Bestes. Ich stelle sie jetzt erstmal vor. Sie hat mehr als 15 Jahre lang als Lehrerin Latein und Griechisch unterrichtet und nun fasziniert sie mit ihren Büchern Menschen auf der ganzen Welt für griechische Mythologie. Meine Damen und Herren, Madeline Miller.
Ja.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. So
Thank
nice of
you.
you to join us. We were just talking about Bookstock and how it is a huge influence. And you, I don't think you have a TikTok account. Is that right?
I don't. Hello, and thank you all for having me. I am terrible at all social media, including TikTok, so I just don't dare.
Yeah, that's crazy because like 10 years after its initial release, your first book was kind of rediscovered by TikTok, and it's all over Bookstock, even right now. As we are speaking, it's probably like everywhere. How did that feel? Like, did you expect it? If you don't have TikTok yourself, it must have come as a surprise, right?
I was totally shocked. I mean, it is a huge, huge honor. It's a huge privilege. I think every writer hopes and dreams that readers will find their story and love their story and want to recommend their story on. I mean, that's the ultimate honor for a writer. But I had no idea it was coming at all. My publisher actually called me up and said, do you know why Song of Achilles is selling? And I said, no.
Because it's good.
Well, why was he so surprised?
Yeah.
A crazy thing just happened. Your book is selling. Have you read it? It's amazing.
So they kept asking me, like, are you doing more events? And I said, no, I haven't been doing anything. So then they did some research and they said, it's this thing called TikTok. And I said, what? Because I didn't know.
Crazy.
But they sent me some of them, and it was just, as soon as I saw one, it brought tears to my eyes. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, the love is really overwhelming. Must feel nice to be loved. that came out wrong. That came out really wrong. How does it feel to receive so much love online?
It is. It is amazing, and I hope that my readers know that I send that love right back to them. It means the world to me.
Yeah, let's have an awe moment.
A lot of awes here, a lot of awes.
With your books, you are retelling stories from Greek mythology. What was it that initially fascinated you about these really old stories?
I loved them for two reasons. First of all, I loved how incredibly human they were. My mother used to read me the Greek myths when I was a child. And although, of course, I loved the gods and the fantasy and the monsters, what I really loved was how real they felt. That, you know, they were incredibly disturbing, sometimes stories about grief and loss and war and courage and sacrifice and parents and children. They were about things that felt really intense. In fact, I always think it's a little strange that we tell these myths to children because they are very adult in some
welcome
ways.
to Germany. You don't want to know what kind of stories we tell our kids. There's a lot of murder in them.
Yes, there's a lot of murder. So I I felt like I was getting this view into real life, even though it was mythology. And then at the same time, while I loved that, I was also frustrated. And that sort of kept me engaged with them, that I wanted there to be more. I wanted to focus on certain characters. I wanted more women's stories. I wanted, you know, to understand who Patroclus was, for instance. So I feel like that I had this incredible love for them, but also this frustration where I just wanted to go deeper and deeper into the story.
And there wasn't anything that could satisfy that, because, I mean, I just recently rewatched the big blockbuster movie Troy. I don't know if you know that movie. And it's so crazy. After reading your book, they're retelling the story without the beautiful love story between Patroclus and Achilles. And it's like watching a movie about the Titanic and it doesn't mention that it sunk. It's just like, I think you're missing something really great here. Yeah, are there, besides
I like that analogy.
Thanks. Besides from any mythological, it's a really hard word for me to pronounce, are there any historical persons or figures on your bucket list that you would like to write about? I mean, Abraham Lincoln had a roommate he slept with. They shared a bed because it was more cost efficient, I guess.
There's a lot of roommates in history.
Certainly.
And I definitely hope that their stories get told. But I love actually working in the world of mythology, mythological realism. I think if I were going to write about a historical figure, I would need to approach the project in a very different way. Because if I'm representing a real person, I would need to feel that I really was respecting that person's life. Whereas, you know, Achilles and Patroclus are like real people to me, and they may have been based on seeds of someone who was real, but also, you know, their mythology. And so I feel like I have sort of license to tell their story, whereas historical fiction kind of terrifies me.
And are you, will you stay within Greek mythology, or could I maybe interest you in some Nordic myths, for example? Or, as I mentioned, we have great children's stories here in Germany too.
I mean, I would want to make sure that I could speak the language of any myth I was writing about or read the language. So I'm very sorry, I don't. Right. But I think for right now, mythology, Greek and Roman mythology is where I would want to stay. But I could also imagine myself writing just contemporary fiction, not related to mythology at all. So that's always a possibility.
All right, I have a lot more questions, but I think there are also some questions in the chat.
They are. So here's one question. Can I read your books if I don't know anything about Greek mythology?
I'm so glad you asked that. Yes.
It's not me. It's someone in the chat. Okay, props, not my props.
It was me. Like.
Thank you, chat person, for that question. So yes, and actually this was really important to me because oftentimes I think that sometimes people can feel intimidated by this mythology and by these stories, and I think they can also feel alienated by them. I used to be a Latin teacher, and sometimes students would come in and they would think, this is not for me, this is boring, this is old, it has nothing to do with my life. And so I wanted to write the books in such a way that they could be for everyone. They could be for people who had no background in these stories, they could be a way in, or they could be for people who already knew the stories and there would be goodies for them. So I feel really strongly that the Iliad and the Odyssey were, you know, initially oral tradition. They were passed down by storytellers, you know, from generation to generation, parents to children, grandparents to children. They were created in response to the audience listening. You know, these were works that were for everyone. And I really wanted the books to honor that.
Yeah, so they are for everyone. Everyone is reading them.
And posting about it.
Check on that. So last question from the chat. Who is your favorite character from Greek mythology?
Oh, that is really, really hard to answer. Okay, obviously Patroclus and Circe, because I spent, you know, years writing about them. But if we were going to set them aside, I think I would have to say, Oh, I have so many. I mean, I love Cassandra. Her life is so sad, but I feel like it's so relatable. I mean, so many women have had the experience of trying to explain something or tell their story and not being believed. I feel like that is such a timeless story, unfortunately. I do love Clytemnestra. I mean, she's kind of a villain in the stories, but if anyone ever deserved the axe in the bathtub, it was definitely Agamemnon. So I really appreciate her story. There's so many. Hector and Andromache. I think Hector is in many ways the actual hero of the Iliad. So I could go on and on, but I won't.
Right. Well, if I can, it's really great meeting and seeing you and using this chance to ask some questions. I keep it brief. Just one more question. I mean, about your books, you have written the Song of Achilles, obviously, but also you've written about Circe, you've written about Galatea, and those were books with female protagonists. Was the approach different with these books than the approach to your first book?
No, I think each character is really different, and I sort of go through the same process. I have a background in theater, and so I often feel like I have to get into character, like an actor would get into character. My friends say I'm a method writer because I sort of have to get inside the character's head. If there was one character that I felt like was harder, I might say Circe, just because she was a goddess. She's immortal. And I wanted the way she talked about time and the way she talked about the passage of years to feel really different from the way a human would talk about them. And so I spent a lot of time really thinking about that and developing her voice. So in a sense, she was sort of the hardest because she's the farthest away from me as a goddess.
Well, depends on who you ask, I would say.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can follow me at Takambakchi. Thank you so much for these answers and for your time. Madeline Miller, thank you so much for your time. Wir bleiben direkt mal thematisch bei TikTok. Oh, es tut so gut, wieder Deutsch zu sprechen.
Das wird ja noch häufiger passieren.
Das stimmt. Ich gucke mir das nachher an. Das wäre so demütigend, wenn ich dann sehe, dass ich von Hugendubel untertitelt wurde die ganze Zeit.
So schlimm ist es nicht,
okay.
Oder?
Dann bleiben wir doch direkt bei TikTok und wir bleiben auch beim Nacherzählen, trifft es nicht ganz, Neuerzählen von bekannten Geschichten. Denn erstens, unser nächster Gast sagt ebenfalls von sich, dass sie einen Großteil ihres Erfolges TikTok zu verdanken hat. Und auch sie erzählt eine altbekannte Story neu. Bei ihr geht es um Romeo und Julia. Aber es spielt im Shanghai der 1920er Jahre und es ist noch eine Prise grauenvoller Morde mit in dem Buch dabei. Also eine sehr interessante Mischung. Meine Damen und Herren, Chloe Gong. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, so happy to be
Hi.
here.
Hi, Chloe.
Welcome.
Hello, so happy to be here, so excited.
Oh, we are as well. We were just talking to Madeline Miller and she does not have a TikTok account. You do. And you're not only a very successful writer, but also, I would say, a successful book talker. Is that fair to say? Or did I just insult you?
No, I suppose that's fair. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, it was meant as a compliment.
Yeah, I was on Bookstock in the very, very early stages. Like April of 2020, when Bookstock was just starting, I was like, oh, people dance on TikTok. I'm going to go on there and talk about books. So that's how I got started there.
Sounds really reasonable, actually, and really great. And do you, as a writer now, because you are a very successful writer, but do you use TikTok as a writer as a tool?
In a way, I think I use TikTok as a way to connect to readers.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship with TikTok has changed a lot because in the beginning, I was kind of trying to find my footing and to just spread word of my book out there. Because these violent delights, at least in English, published during the pandemic when all the bookstores were closed. So TikTok and BookTok as a platform was me reaching out to people and saying, hi, like, do you like enemies to lovers stories? Oh my God, I wrote one. But now these days—
What are the odds?
Yeah, oh my God, what? Really? Like, but now these days, it's really just to talk to readers, because I can find so many of them on there and they can directly access me.
Yeah, it's great to have that connection, I think, but it's also evident that in the music industry, for example, is heavily influenced by TikTok. You can see songs that are designed to be shareable on TikTok. Do you think in the future publishing companies will urge writers to write with TikTok in mind, or is that maybe even part of your process now? Like, do you have a TikTok audience in mind while writing?
I think in the future, it is definitely something that could happen, but as writers and authors, we probably don't want that to happen, right? Because at least for me, when I go into a book, I want to write what the story demands. I want to create something that I really love. I want to create something that makes sense for the progression of the plot. I don't want to put things in there just because I know it would do well on TikTok. But, you know, we live in a world of capitalism, so maybe we're heading towards that in the future.
No way.
God.
All right, and moving away from TikTok towards your books, they are obviously influenced by Shakespeare. I mean, the characters are named Roma and Juliet, and it's obvious, but it's also obvious that Shakespeare is a big influence on everyone, but why him? What inspires you within Shakespeare's stories that you thought, well, that's something I can relate to?
Well, I think Shakespeare as a figure is really, really big in Western literature. Like, when you think the Western canon, Shakespeare is definitely one of the first people you would read to kind of understand what, I guess, even the whole of English language kind of is built around, like, these days, right? When we think of English literature. And I wanted to create something that kind of mixed worlds in a sense, right? I wanted something that felt very Western in story, like star-crossed lovers, blood feuds, and yet I wanted to put this kind of Eastern lens on top of it, because Juliet as a character and Shanghai in the 1920s was very much about this merge between worlds. It was about Western imperialism and then this like native Eastern culture trying to hold on to its history and its roots. So working with this kind of setting and then kind of reimagining such a quintessential English story felt really interesting to me, because it was as if I was bringing something new to the story while still working with something that was very, very old.
Yes, Shakespeare, Shanghai in the 1920s was a beautiful setting. I think it was very interesting to read about. You also had the most horrifying monster I've seen in any form of literature. And I don't remember that being part of Shakespeare. Where did that monster come from? I was like shocked. Like,
he was telling me, you finished the book, and then he told me, Mona, you cannot imagine the monster. Oh my God. So
it was, I'm sorry I don't know if you can use foul language, but it was fucked up. Where did that come from? In a positive way.
It came from... I am very, very honored that you thought it was fucked up. Like, that is exactly what I was going for. Yeah, the monster was, I think when I write, I just like putting in the really, really gruesome, gory things. I sat down and I thought, okay, we have gangsters, we have blood feud, we have 1920s Shanghai. I want something a little bit more.
A little bit.
And it's because, just a little bit, a little big monster, right? When you think about the kinds of trouble going on in 1920 Shanghai, it's not very visible. Like, you think of foreign invaders, you think of colonialism, you think of capitalism. You can't see that, but you can see a very disgusting monster. And so the monster kind of serves as a metaphor of sense, but also on the pages of a novel, it helps move things along so that characters are combating the invisible problems alongside the very visible monster and the insects crawling out of it.
That makes so much sense. Don't remind me. I'm literally having nightmares. But, I'm still
You'll
looking
start itching
forward.
soon.
Still looking forward to read the second book, Our Violent Ends, I think. In German, the titles are different. Your first book is translated in Welch grausame Gnade, so it's doesn't really
She's like,
relate. All right. You do you. Do you
want us to do something fun?
Yeah, let's do something fun.
After
not
the monster
related.
Yeah.
We would like to play a light-hearted game with you. It's pretty common in social media. I would say so. Yeah, it's a pretty common game within social media.
Here it comes.
This is Ferdinand.
I'm so excited. Hello.
Our very personal elevator boy.
Love it.
Danke.
It's pretty simple. We're going to show you combinations of emojis, and you are, if you like, going to guess which book title they represent. If you can guess everything right, Hugendubel will give you... No, it's just for fun. I'm sorry.
I don't have a prize.
I'm sorry. It's the first book right here. What do you see and what do you think? Which book title could that be? It's a door, it's a lion.
We have some snow,
a sword, and snowflake.
Yeah, let us...
I mean, my first instinct is like, if the door could be a wardrobe and a lion, it could be Narnia.
Maybe.
But then,
Ding, ding, ding.
Maybe.
That's right. It's,
am I
it's
right?
Narnia. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
One step closer to your prize.
Perfect.
I'm so proud of myself.
Wow. Not bad.
This is the next one. It gets harder.
So, Alag,
Oh, I know what this is.
Yeah, you do?
That's the song of Achilles.
It is.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you get the solutions before?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Just asking. So
we
very
just-
quick.
Am I cheating?
Yeah, we just suck at this game. We
Yeah,
played it before
so-
and we were like,
We were at home like, what is that? A lion? And
All right, it's a song of someone, but who? Think. All right, last one if you get this
I
right
read
too.
a lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
This one
I
is
don't know if this
tricky. This one is tricky. It's a peach.
Well, I mean, when I see a peach and then I see that emoji, I don't know if I'm even allowed to say this, but is it "Call Me by Your Name"?
It is. Oh my God.
Wow.
Again, I read a lot.
Wow. That was amazing.
The iconic peach scene, never forget. So before
Yeah, you put a peach in there. I'm like, it's gotta be that.
yeah, as well. So we have two main questions from the chat on the stream. First one: which character was the most interesting to write?
Ooh. I think the most interesting character in These Violent Delights was probably Juliet, like, because she's the protagonist, right? She's the one that I spend the most time in her head. She's the one that kind of gets those layers and details that I don't hone in on as much with side characters. And sometimes I feel like I'm choosing the easy answer when I'm saying, oh, who was your favorite character to write? Who was the hottest character to write? And I'm like, oh, it was Juliet. But she's the main character for a reason, and she got so much of my energy that way that after we finished, I was like, oh, so proud of you. Now go away.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us and for your time and for your amazing show of skills here. Ladies and gentlemen, Chloe Gong, thank you so much.
Chloe Gong, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. So, Tarkan, du hast mich ja vorhin nach TikTok gefragt.
Ja.
Jetzt frage ich dich nach Spannung, weil, also ich weiß, dass du gerne liest, aber ich weiß gar nicht so ganz genau, was so bei dir auf dem Nachttisch liegt. Liest du gerne so Krimis und Thriller und sowas?
Ja, ich glaube, man konnte eben schon erahnen,
Die Monster sind nicht so dein?
dass ich so leicht Weichei-Anlagen
Weicheich
bin,
bist.
was mein Lesen angeht. Also ich verliebe mich lieber in so einem Book-Boyfriend oder Book-Girlfriend. Und an Spannung gar nicht so gut ab, aber Bei mir ist es vor allem die Spannung, wenn Charaktere Geheimnisse voneinander haben oder ganz klassisch, jemand ist in einem Raum und gleich kommt jemand und er wird erwischt und ich sage, renn, renn, lauf, geh da weg und dann, oh, er hat es doch geschafft oder sie. Das finde ich ganz schlimm, aber sobald es so um Morde geht oder so, geht's.
Ja, bei mir ist es auch, ich kann das total nachvollziehen. Ich glaube, viele auch, die gerne Krimis oder Thriller lesen, dass manchmal diese subtile Spannung, dieses Geheimnisvolle so zwischen den Zeilen, dass das einen absolut fertig machen kann. Und es ist ja auch vollkommen zu Recht so, dass, also sieht man ja anhand von Zahlen einfach so, dass Krimis und Thriller seit Jahrzehnten schon unangefochten Genre Nummer 1 und 2 in Deutschland sind. Es gibt unfassbar viele Menschen, die total draufstehen, wenn es richtig, richtig spannend wird. Und jetzt kann man sagen, dass wir als nächstes hier sowas wie die Krimi- und Thriller-Weltelite.
Ich dachte, du sagst Queens.
Ja, Queens, kann man auch sagen. Ist ja so synonym quasi. Die Bücher unserer nächsten Gästin, die haben nämlich tatsächlich bis heute, Stand jetzt, 2800 Wochen international auf Bestsellerlisten gestanden. Das sind umgerechnet 50 Jahre. Das kann man mal machen. So. Die Bücher wurden in 120 Ländern über 40 Millionen Mal verkauft. Und muss aber dazu sagen, dass sie nicht schon immer geschrieben hat. Früher hatte sie eine Schilderfirma und heute schreibt sie eben so erfolgreich Thriller wie kaum eine andere. Ihr neuestes Buch heißt Girl Forgotten. Wir haben es auch direkt hier liegen. Auf Deutsch Die Vergessene. Und ich bitte, die erste Reihe flippt schon aus, ich bitte um einen riesig großen Applaus. Herzlich willkommen, Karin Slaughter.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Karin. So nice to have you here. We want to talk about suspense in writing, obviously, with you. And for that, we invited a second guest. I would just introduce her in German very quick. Also es kommt noch eine zweite Autorin in diese Runde hinzu. Sie ist eine der etabliertesten Jugendbuchautorinnen. International bekannt geworden mit ihrem Buch One of Us is Lying. Gibt es auch als Serie bei Netflix. Auch da wird schon wieder gemurmelt. Das Ganze ist ein Thriller im Highschool-Setting und in diese Richtung geht auch ihr neuestes Buch. Das heißt Nothing More to Tell. Auch das stellen wir hier zu und ich bitte um einen ganz großen Applaus für Karin McManus. Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi. So, Karin and Karin. So, first question, how do we solve the tiny little problem that your names sound so familiar, similar? Do you have, I don't know, a nickname, or should I just stay with your last names, or how do we solve that?
I'm fine with Slaughter.
I
Okay,
have no
Slaughter.
name.
Slaughter and McManus. Sounds great.
Sounds like a cop duo.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that you share one bookshelf. It's
Yeah, it seems like you're sitting right next to each other. You're not. So, Karin McManus, you live in Massachusetts. Karin Slaughter, you are at home in Atlanta, right? Have you ever met
Correct.
before? Do you know each other? No.
I
No.
don't think so.
So today we are connecting
I know
you.
Karen's work, but we haven't met.
So we are connecting you in a digital way today. That's very cool. And there is a huge thing that you both have in common. It's your talent of creating suspense in the stories you write. What exactly fascinates you the most while writing a thriller? McManus. Karin McManus first, maybe. Feels weird.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
For me, it's all about the character journey. Because I do write young adult, there's this element of coming of age.
Mhm.
The characters need to figure something out at the same time that they're figuring out the mystery. So my hope is that as the clues unfold to who done it also unfolds into who these kids are and who they're becoming.
Okay, so it's much more than just suspense. It's like the whole story around as well. And you, Karin Slaughter, you are considered the crime and thriller queen in so many countries. Every book you write is a huge success, and you wrote quite a lot within the last 20 years. What inspires you the most during your writing process? So where do you get your ideas from while writing for every single book again and again?
Well, I don't write YA, but I do kill a lot of young adults in my book.
Well,
I mean, a lot of them are asking for it. I mean, let's just be honest. Yeah. But, you know, I think I just go back to the mystery of character. Every book, whether it's a crime novel or any other kind of novel, should ask a question at the end, a beginning rather, that you answer at the end. Mm-hmm. And so for me, when I start a book, I start with what is the central question. And a lot of times it's not who done it, it's why they did it.
Mm-hmm. And while writing, do you have kind of average reader in mind? How well do you know your fans, people who love Karin Slaughter books?
I know them fairly well. I've been touring for many years, particularly Germany and Austria. Mm-hmm. I feel a real connection to my readers there because they're really fantastic. But that being said, I never think about them when I'm writing. I think, maybe the other Karin would agree with this, is if you think about your readers, you're never going to write because you're trying to make all of them happy. And I think at the end of the day, I'm a writer because I love telling stories, and my first reader is myself. So I'm really selfish that way. I want to write a book that I want to read.
Mm-hmm. And who's your second reader?
My editor. And, a lot of people, I don't understand like letting friends or family read your stuff because I don't want their opinions. I want to write what I want to write. Yeah. Well, you can also choose someone is going to love it. You're not going to choose the one who hates it. So, and not that my editor hates it, but we've known each other 20 years. We've kind of grown up in the business together. And so she's very diplomatic, but she'll say, maybe this isn't working. And most of the time, I mean, given how many books I've written, mm-hmm. I know what's in your head, but it needs to be on the page.
That's not diplomatic. Yeah. This isn't working. It's not diplomatic.
But it sounds
well,
like family.
I've got a tough skin. Yeah, yeah. She's pretty amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's maybe the other Karin will agree with me that you just have to have someone you trust mm-hmm. to be honest with you when you're writing, because the whole point of writing for me is to get better, mm-hmm. and you get better by listening to someone who has a very good eye and who can critique you. And who understands what you're trying to do. And, particularly with what I write, which can be very spine-chilling and tingling and scary stuff. I want someone who is not afraid of that unflinching look I take at violence. And, my editor gets that. She's never going to say, oh, maybe don't kill that young adult. She's always going to be like, well, does the young adult have a friend? No, that's a witness.
Great. And Karen McManus, in your case, who is your second reader after you as the first reader?
Yeah, I mean, Karen's right. I do actually share my book with my sister, but not because I want her to critique me. I want her to tell me it's awesome and amazing and the best thing she's ever read, even when it's terrible. That's her job. She has one job, and it's to tell me I'm great. And then I send it off to my agent and my editor, and they tell me all the things that are wrong with it, mm-hmm. and the critique that I need to make it better.
Yeah, one step after another. So you are a queen as well in young adult thrillers. Your protagonists are always young. High school is a common setting in your stories. How did you find out that this is the genre you wanted to be yours?
I got inspired when I read The Hunger Games mm-hmm. by Suzanne Collins. And at the time, I was a marketing executive on a business trip. I had no intentions of writing anything, but I was fascinated by the voice, the world, and for the first time in a long time, I wanted to create something. I used to write as a kid, but I gave it up. And so I sat down and I wrote a really terrible knockoff of the Hunger Games, which will never see the light of day, thankfully, because it was bad. But it was so much fun to write. And that got me excited to create something again. And I started doing a deep dive into the young adult category and came away just really impressed with how dynamic and diverse and exciting it is.
And this book you wrote but never published, is it the only one at home in the backyard? Or how many books do you wrote but never published?
There are 3. I wrote this dystopian book. I wrote a fantasy, which was also terrible.
Okay.
And then a contemporary romance, which was kind of cute, but it's so off-brand, we can't figure out what to do with it unless I add a murder.
Did your sister
pragmatic?
Did your sister like those books, or was she like, I don't know, and you're like, all right, they're terrible then? Or did she give you support on
No, she knows her job.
All right. So
always only
the
good.
assignment. She loves everything.
All right. So it's like Hunger Games, but better.
Better, even better. So now we have Karin Slaughter writing mainly for adults and Karen McManus writing mainly for young adults. What do you think is the difference between the expectations of these two audiences concerning suspense in books? I don't know who.
Well, I think it's the same.
Yeah,
I mean, they all want a good
Yeah.
read and something shocking and thrilling. I mean, I can go a little further,
this
obviously,
is
because I'm
the
writing
point.
for adults.
Yeah, this is the point I'm asking myself. So, Karen McManus, when you write, do you have to find the thin line between too much and not enough? And where is this line compared to Karin Slaughter's books?
I mean, I don't think we give up anything in terms of suspense or tension. I think there may be a little less darkness in my books, but not always in the young adult genre. I think some of my peers go very dark and they do it very well. I think if something is experienced in the world by a young adult, they deserve to see that reflected on the page. It just might not be me who should be writing it. I do tend to enjoy the balance. I like adding humor. I like adding romance. And I think, you know, the big thing in the young adult story is they usually end with hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really nice...
You know, even though you go through some traumatic things, you're better off maybe at the end than you were at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a really nice observation. Let's have, before we come to an end, one last question from the chat. We are watched by billions of people, and they have been asking, which was, for the both of you, which was the most exciting story for you to write? And why so? Let's start maybe with, don't say who starts, let's make it suspenseful. Just someone start.
Well, I'll jump in.
Okay.
How's that?
That was
Well,
tough.
I'm curious if I want to ask the other Karen if it's an older sister or a younger sister, because I'm the youngest and my older sisters would shit all over me if I gave them something. But
It's my younger sister.
Oh, there you go. So she's scared of you. So
Maybe.
my first books were my most joyful ones, and I wrote them when I was 6 years old. And they were all about my older sisters being mutilated or murdered or kidnapped. And they all had the same happy ending of I was an only child. And they weren't really mysteries like classic whodunit, because no one cared. They were just happy that my sisters were gone. So it was really, you know, it reflected where I was at that age and how I felt about the world.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So is it a younger or an older sister?
It's a younger.
Younger,
Yeah,
sorry. I spaced out when you
Yeah,
were talking about murdering your
Yeah.
family. I was like, wait, was it?
No,
Just my
younger.
sisters, not my parents. I'm not an animal.
Yeah, it's still family though. Yeah, all right. So, which was,
Love that move.
all right, which was the most exciting story to write, and why so the other one, the other Karen?
You know, I think for me, it was probably one of us is lying, because that was truly the book I wrote for myself. It was the book I would have loved to read as a teenager. And I read it not thinking about anybody except for that teenage me. There was no editor, there was no agent, there were no readers, reviewers. It was just, if I could put everything I love in a story, this is what it would be. And you never can really replicate that once you're published, because the voices are there and they're great. Like, you love the voices, you need the voices, but it does change the writing experience.
So I think,
Oh, it's a murder.
Oh, murder's calling.
The call is coming from inside the house.
It's my sisters. They've seen this and they're coming for me.
You're in trouble.
Perfect. I think this talk couldn't come to a better end than this one. Thank you very much. We hope for your future and our future to hear and to see a lot more from you. Thank you very much for being part of Bookstock today.
Thank you
Karin
so much.
Slaughter and Karen McManus.
Wow. Wow.
Ich wollte jetzt auf Englisch weiterreden.
Ich auch, ich muss mich kurz
Pretty
sortieren.
intense.
Pretty intense.
Pretty
Aber
intense.
dann vom Thriller mal weg so ein bisschen durchatmen in ein anderes Genre, nämlich zum Fantasy-Genre. Unser nächster Gast ist extra aus London hergereist. Er hat die Figur Peter Grant erfunden, ein Ermittler, der sich vor allem mit übernatürlichen Fällen beschäftigt. Und er hat bisher 10 Bänder zu Peter Grant veröffentlicht. Und ich habe nicht das Gefühl, dass Peter Grant so bald aufhören wird zu ermitteln. Meine Damen und Herren, hier ist Ben AARONOVITCH. Hi. Hey.
Hello, welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
Really low.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's what I thought when I sang in here. It's like
Takes away a lot of dignity.
I may need a rope.
Also joining us, and I'm looking forward to say something I've wanted to say for a very long time. She has written a lot of very atmospheric books that feel like folklore, and now the sentence. Live from New York, Elizabeth Lim. Hi.
hello. Hi.
First of all, are you in New York right now?
I am.
Yes!
So I loved your introduction.
You made a man very lucky.
Happy. Great, thanks. You're both writing within the fantasy genre, but your books feel different. Ben, I would say your magic is almost scientifical. It feels very like grounded, and your books, Elizabeth, I would say are more like classic fairy tales. It feels more like folklore. Would you agree with that? Is it?
Nah.
All right, maybe let's start with you, Elizabeth.
Good choice.
Would you agree?
I definitely try to go for a fairy tale vibe when I am working on my books. So I would agree with that assessment, I think.
All right, now the honest answer.
I have 2 types of magic. I deliberately designed it so I could have my cake and eat it. I have the very scientific kind of Newtonian magic that the human practitioners use, but I wanted some whimsy. I do like a bit of whimsy, and I wanted a bit of some of the fantastical. Yeah. So the fae and the rivers, their magic is slightly more.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And it's, I think there are 10 books now about Peter Grant, right?
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing because I think you once said that the character actually just appeared one day.
Yes.
How?
Well, when you're writing a book, I mean, when I'm writing a book, I mean, obviously everyone differs in their technique. When I'm writing a book, I sort of start with a vague idea of what I'm doing and a vague idea of who the main character is. And in this particular case, I was slightly desperate. And I was writing at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is always, kind of, a slightly liminal time. And I kind of had a vague idea of what he was going to be like. I knew what he wasn't going to be. He wasn't going to be a depressed, middle-aged police officer drinking himself into a...
At 4 o'clock in the morning.
At 4 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
He wasn't going to be, he wasn't going to have a marriage that was disintegrating and all that. I wanted him to be young and fun and someone who actually liked being a police officer was the basic brief. And he just kind of walked into my head. And I just knew everything about him. Yeah, no, he started by, I wrote the line. He walked into my head and I wrote the line, "My name is Peter Grant, and I am a member of that mighty army for justice known to all right-thinking people as the Metropolitan Police."
Yeah,
and
felt powerful.
The filth to everybody else. Oh. Right? And I had his voice. As soon as that, I had his voice, and then I wrote the first 3 pages without really knowing why there was a headless corpse, I might add, in Covent Garden, just that there was. And I read it and I thought, sod me, this is going to sell.
Sorry, how long was this process from the vague idea to these lines?
About 30 seconds.
Wow.
Ah, yeah.
No.
Wow.
Okay, you got me there.
No, the vague process goes on while you're doing everything else. You're doing the washing up. And your brain is going, la, 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 la. My son really didn't have much of a father for about 5 or 6 months, as I kind of like, yes, whatever. Just get on with it being 12.
It's this fictional character I have to focus on.
Yes, much more important. And given that fictional character paid him through college, he agrees with me.
That's a really good point. Elizabeth,
good argument.
You, on the other hand, once said that you were inspired, I think, by Hans Christian Andersen. Is that right? For your book, Six Crimson Cranes.
Yes, for this this book, Six Crimson Cranes, the Wild Swans fairy tale has always been one of my favorites since I was a child, and I just realized that it wasn't so common to know this fairy tale, at least in the U.S. So when I was picking a fairy tale to reimagine, it was at the top of my list.
All right, so it's just the fairy tale was already the inspiration for the book, so that's why it kind of feels like a fairy tale that has been around for like a long time, to me at least.
Yes, it does.
Was that something you wanted to go for?
One of the reasons I've always loved it was I felt that the princess in this fairy tale, so the original fairy tale is about a princess whose 6 brothers are turned into swans by their evil stepmother, the queen. And there isn't really much of a reason that the stepmother does this to her stepchildren. In the fairy tale, they usually just say, oh, she was jealous of all the time that their children was spending with the king. And so for me as a writer, that just it felt very petty of an excuse. So I wanted to explore more of the stepmother. And also I really appreciated that the princess in this fairy tale, she doesn't rely on a prince to kiss her and break a curse. She does it herself. Like the entire story is about her going through these numerous trials to save her brothers.
And something you two have in common, besides fantasy, of course, is I think both of you listen to music while writing, right? Or wrong? Yeah? Do you listen to music, Elizabeth? You actually have a musical background, right?
I do. I was a very serious musician before becoming a writer. I was actually a professional composer. And actually, it's funny, I don't listen to music.
You don't?
Right now.
All right.
Precisely because I find it too distracting.
But you do, Ben, right?
Yeah, I have playlists depending on what I'm writing.
Oh, so you have to have the...
I have an action playlist.
All right.
A very sad playlist. It can get very specialized. Well, if you think about it, it can take you up to 3 weeks to write one scene, and and you have to, it's like a sad, desperate scene. You're la 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 la. You need to listen to something really sad in order to get back into the mood. Otherwise, particularly in my case, I'll put a joke in.
can you, which is always great, but can you name some of those songs? Like, do you have a scene in mind where you remember a specific song you listen to?
Well, for when I want to be sad, I listen to the soundtrack for Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is a soundtrack for a video game.
Yeah.
It's desperately sad. But when it's happy, it's just sort of like random pop songs from the 1980s and 90s mostly.
All right, but it doesn't bother you if there are lyrics in the songs?
It used to, but now it doesn't. Now, especially if it's something I know very well. If you know a song very well, then you stop listening to the lyrics. The lyrics would just become part of the rhythm.
Yeah, but you don't suddenly Peter Grant meets a Barbie girl in a Barbie. Oh fuck!
No, I mean, then I wouldn't write to that song. That's a very intrusive song.
That's a good point.
The best music I find is soundtracks for movies, because they're actually designed to operate below the surface of conscious thought. And so therefore they're perfect for writing. So especially when you get something and it's just like exciting. I've got to write something exciting. Yay, for 3 weeks.
Are your playlists open to listen to for everyone?
I haven't worked out how to do that. I'm a technological dinosaur.
All right.
Ask your son.
Ask
your son.
I don't think they're on speaking terms, actually.
You're right.
I just don't trust him. He likes horrible music, so.
Okay.
And you just mentioned you were a very serious composer for video games, which is a link again. But did your previous life affect your writing life? Like, do you sometimes find yourself writing and remembering, like, oh, I write that way because of my background? Or is it something you don't think about at all?
I definitely feel the two are related and use the same part of my brain. I actually started writing because I wanted to become a film and video game composer. So I wanted to study narrative. And I found that by writing my own stories, I could understand the drama in music better. And so I would try to write music for my own stories. So it's funny to me now that I've decided to become a writer instead of a composer.
And what about you? Because you have written for television, and I think you wrote episodes for Doctor Who, which is crazy. But did that affect your writing? Crazy because it's such a huge show. It's
not when I was writing for it.
Oh, all right. But maybe that's why it became so huge.
I wrote it before it was fashionable.
Before it was, all right, like someone who goes to a club before it became cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those 30-year overnight successes. I actually was a professional writer for about 20 years before I even got a sniff of money, but large sums of money anyway.
Writing for television must be different than writing for...
a script is a collaborative process. Yeah. You write a script for about 70 people, of which 9 people are paid more than you. And that's not even counting the actors. So, it's a completely different kind of process. But it teaches you hammer structure. You get hammered in, structure gets hammered into your brain. I don't think about structure when I'm writing the novels because that kind of structure just comes naturally.
Just subconsciously already in me. Yeah. And are there any other aspects you find yourself, like where you think, oh yeah, of course I write that way because I've written for television? I mean, did it start as a series? Did you write the book and thought, maybe?
No, it actually the exact opposite of that. What happened was I realized I was never going to write for television again. It took me about 5 years to realize I was never going to write for television again. And then I thought, I know, if I could write a book, because I was working in a bookshop. So it was obvious to me that millions of people were being published every year, and it was obviously really easy to get published. Writing for television, where there was only 2 people. At that point, there was exactly 2 people who could commission you in Britain, and one of them didn't like me. So
Was he your son?
No. So I sat down to write, and I thought, I'm going to do everything you can't do in British television. So I set it in central London, which you couldn't do at the time. I have riots. I blow up major landmarks. I have the guy driving around in a really expensive car.
The whole range of freedom.
Yeah, and it was just like as many people as you like. Brilliant. So it was kind of, I reacted against that. I did all the sorts of things that you wouldn't be able to put into a script, which of course is coming back to bite us on the bum now. Yeah,
but you have seemed to manage that. Or are there any, when you write like a second book or a third book and now the 10th book, I don't think it's gonna stop soon. It feels like he's gonna. Or do you feel like, oh, I'm struggling to expand the universe because it's...
No, I have trouble keeping the bloody universe.
Oh, all right.
It's like he keeps going, no, go over here. Shut up. Get in the book. I fight with my characters a lot.
All right.
No, at the moment, I mean, I've always said that I will stop writing them if A, people stop buying them, obviously. B, I stop enjoying writing them because there's no point in me doing it if it's work. The whole point of becoming a writer is to avoid actual work. And 3, if I can afford enough money to buy a yacht.
What?
Yes, a big yacht. I mean,
What's
I'm not talking about a yacht.
I don't know what a yacht is.
No.
Boat, yacht?
Ow! I'm so poor, I don't even know the word.
Yeah.
it's so out of my price range.
I don't mean like, you know,
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
10-meter thing with a thing. I mean a huge yacht.
Elizabeth, what about you? The book, I don't want to spoil anything, but it's part 1 of 2, six crimson, 6. It's really hard to say. Die sechs Kraniche. After writing the second one, where you're like, I should have, it was so much fun, I have ideas for like 5 more, or was it like, all right, the story is done now?
For me, the story revolving around the characters in the book are done, and I definitely cried a bit when I finished writing book 2 because I missed them so much. But I think one of the lovely things about the books that I've been writing so far is they're all set in the same universe. So like cameos are definitely never out of the question.
Oh yeah.
And in future books, I love just adding like little Easter eggs and bringing back like side characters and exploring them more.
Yeah, that's really great, and it's great because if you don't know these side characters, it's so nice to just then see, oh, there are books about them too. I think that's really great as a reader to explore.
Yeah. So we have 2 questions, very specific questions.
All right.
Or do you have one?
One last question I would like to ask Ben, because you have also written a book that takes place in the universe of Peter Grant. It's not about Peter Grant, it's about someone else, and it's set in Germany. Why Germany?
Second largest market.
Ah, all right. Getting that yacht money.
No, that's the very cynical answer. I hadn't been to Germany. I mean, I'd been to Germany when I was about 12, and I hadn't been to Germany again until I was invited over to do book tours, and I thought, this is a great place. I could write a book here, so I did.
Just a feeling.
I just liked it. You know, currywurst, what's not to like?
All right.
Yeah. So we have 2 very specific questions. Let me start with you, Elizabeth. What inspired your Blood of Stars series?
Oh, I love this question. The Blood of Stars series is it's my first duology. It's in the US, I call it Spin the Dawn, which you can see above there. And it's about a tailor who has to sew the legendary dresses of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So my grandmother was actually a seamstress when she first immigrated to the US, and she spent basically her youth sewing clothes for other people. And I remember when I was a child, I used to sit on her lap when she was at the sewing machine and help her. And those memories just always really stayed with me. And so when I was thinking about writing a story, what are the things that I do when I'm brainstorming is I try to think of all the things I love. So I really, I had fond memories of my grandmother's sewing. I also happen to enjoy admiring fashion, and fairy tales and food. So I kind of picked all these things and mashed them together, and a plot formed magically. And so that was the inspiration behind the Blood of Stars.
So
mostly my grandmother.
Yeah, pretty personal. Very nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Ben, will there be more Toby Winter books?
Tobias Winter, yes.
Yeah, Germany.
Yes. There would have been one by now, except for the pandemic.
Oh.
Because I have to come here and do the research. You know, that schnitzel's not going to eat itself. I mean, it's really funny. I keep going everywhere. I go, I'm going on DB. And everyone goes, why are you excited about going on DB? And I'm like, because I like the trains. They're very, very wide German trains.
Yeah.
A lot of room in them.
Yeah. I don't know what English trains look like.
That's what.
But if you say you like DB, I don't want to know.
Yeah, so ask us what we think about DB.
Like. You guys complain, you go 5 minutes later, and you'll go, oh no, 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, I don't want to start about New York subway, but I guess
never
mind.
You don't even want to
another subject.
I think German trains are fabulous.
No, I like it because I can't drive, and you can get everywhere in Germany pretty much.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, not on time, but you eventually
but
you get there.
it doesn't matter to me. I'm not in a hurry. I'm not going to a job or something. I'm just relaxing, going down that way.
Relaxing research.
I think I've gone through Hanover about 12 times in the last 3 months.
Yeah, what does your research actually look like in Germany? Like what?
Well, the big problem with Germany is that Google Maps Street View doesn't work in Germany.
Well, that's the first thing I thought about as well.
So what?
Big problem with Germany.
Biggest problem in Germany.
Well, no, from a writer's point of view. So if you want to know where a street goes and what it looks like, you have to go there and look. So I spent a lot of time in Trier, where the book is set, with a camera going click, click, click. And people were watching me like, what is this man doing?
They were preparing like, oh, wird Post bekommen.
Yeah.
They were writing their lawyers and stuff.
Yeah, and I was just taking photographs, and of course, every time I wrote something, my characters would go to wherever I hadn't taken a photograph. So immediately, I had to get back on a plane, fly in, get the train from Frankfurt. I got to know the route down the Moselle really, really well. I could tell you where all the castles were and everything.
Great. So you are welcome every single time.
Yes.
Thank
And you as well.
You as well, of
really.
course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much for your time
Thank
and
you
for
very
your
much.
beautiful books.
Yes.
Thank you.
I haven't read the second one yet. I'm really excited about it. And thank you so much for your time and for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy your time.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
Elizabeth Lim. Yeah. Ben Aronovich.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you need help getting up? All right, nice.
Thank you
know
very
where
much.
else?
Go
See you
there.
later. Thank you so much for coming. And you too, Elizabeth. Bye bye.
So, jetzt waren wir so weit weg in Welten, die so, so fantastisch sind und so wenig real, dass ich dachte, wir bewegen uns jetzt mal so richtig, also wir kommen so richtig runter wieder auf den harten, realistischen Boden der Tatsache. Wenn du so Worte hörst wie Labor. Es ist sehr einfach, sehr einfach, dieses Publikum hier zu begeistern, beziehungsweise es ist nicht einfach, aber es funktioniert mit diesem Line-Up, genau. Wenn du so Worte hörst wie Labor, Wissenschaft, Forschung, was fühlst du dann?
Worauf könntest du wohl hinaus wollen? Ich weiß
Ich ziehe den Bogen, du hast gerade gesagt, man soll es spannend machen, also.
Das stimmt. Also ich bin jetzt mal ehrlich, obwohl ich weiß, wer gleich kommt, wenn ich diese Worte höre, also es gibt ja sexy Feuerwehrmann-Kalender, es gibt sexy Polizistenkostüme.
Das ist jetzt ein sehr großer Bogenteil.
Ich habe noch nie jemanden als sexy Wissenschaftler an Karneval gesehen. Romantik ist jetzt nicht das Erste, woran ich denke, wenn ich an Wissenschaft denke.
Das stimmt, aber jetzt kommen wir zu der Person, die genau das kann, Wissenschaft und Romantik kombinieren. Sie schreibt Bücher, in denen es ganz viel um Wissenschaft geht und in denen es ganz viel knistert. Und zwar nicht nur im Reagenzglas. Du wolltest deinen New York-Satz sagen, ich wollte das unbedingt sagen. Genau. Niemand weiß, wie sie wirklich heißt, aber wie man merkt, sehr viele Menschen kennen ihr Pseudonym sehr gut, kennen ihre Bücher sehr gut. Sie ist sowas wie ein Superstar in der Szene, New York Times Bestseller-Autorin. Ihr neuestes Buch heißt Das irrationale Vorkommnis der Liebe, haben wir auch hier liegen. Das kommt natürlich auch hier auf unser Tischchen drauf. So, sie ist aber außerdem auch Neurowissenschaftlerin und Professorin, also wir haben sehr viel zu besprechen in den nächsten Minuten mit Ellie HAZELWOOD. There she is.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Yes, have a seat.
Thank you for joining us.
So many Ellie HAZELWOOD fans, right?
Hi, guys.
Yeah, and it's so cool. You came all the way from the US to be here with us today. What an honor.
I didn't even fall on that step, which I thought was going to happen.
And you heard a sound.
You managed it.
You heard a sound.
Was it me? But I'm not going to say who it was.
Okay. But I know that you have a special relation to Germany because you lived here for a while, right?
I did. I lived in Tübingen.
In Tübingen, okay.
Oh, thank you. I lived in Tübingen for a little less than a year. I did my Erasmus when I was in university in Tübingen, and then my husband is German.
So could I switch language? Kann ich einfach auf Deutsch weitermachen oder?
No. Please not.
but so you know Tübingen, and have you ever been to Munich before?
I have, yeah. And also I was born in the north of Italy, so I would, go to Austria and then Germany quite a bit when I was a kid. There is no reason for me not to be able to speak German, except that like my brain just rejects the language. I really should be able to speak it.
What's the word?
Ich studiere Neurowissenschaft.
Wow.
That's what I learned.
Yeah. But
my Erasmus.
Yeah, but Neurowissenschaft is already not the easiest word to know. Yeah.
It counts like 100 words.
Yeah, at least.
Perfect.
Yeah. You say a book title in German?
Oh. Yeah, because the funny thing about the book title is in English, your book title is very, very catchy. Love on the Brain. In Germany, it's Das irrationale Vorkommnis der Liebe. It's so German to transform Love on the Brain to Das irrationale Vorkommnis der Liebe, right?
Which? Okay, I know the first one means the theoretical impossibility of love. I forgot what the second one.
Yeah, we have it here. No, right? We had it here.
What is what does it translate to?
Ist jemand auswendig? Das zweite Buch?
Sorry. Pop Quiz.
Wie? Ach, wir haben das falsch. Oh, wir haben das falsch.
Nein, das ist das irrationale Vorkommnis der Liebe.
Das ist, weil wir haben es.
Ja, aber wir suchen, ist auch egal.
Ja, okay. Ich glaube, wir haben die Bücher verwechselt.
Ja, wir haben ein bisschen aneinander vorbei.
Yeah, we mixed up the books here. It's the
I have no idea what just happened.
Yeah, so hi. Just forget about it. Okay. But let's talk about the layout of the books, because it doesn't matter which one. You see your books in different looks. Isn't it funny to see the English version, the German version, to see, okay, it's my story, but it looks completely different.
Yeah, and it's really cool because I feel like most foreign editions tend to keep the original, well, the US cover. For my first book, Love Hypothesis, most foreign editions have like the blue cover, but the German one is the most different, and it's such a different vibe. I really love it. It's so cool. I'm excited, and the edges are sprayed.
Yeah, they're sprayed.
I'm in love.
Yeah. So before you came in, I just told everyone, well, everyone knew before, that Ali Hazelwood is not your real name. It's a pseudonym, and and I know that you do not talk about certain details, like the place where you live, your exact age, and all that. Why, though? Why is it important for you to keep that kind of privacy?
So, especially at the beginning, I kind of imagined someone like Googling my name and finding my science publications and like my articles about brain connectivity and stuff. And I was like, I feel like that would be weird for an academic who is trying to find out who I am, and also for like a romance reader. Like I just felt like crossing those things would be a little bit weird. And then, I kind of never really expected the first book, The Love Hypothesis, to get as big as it got. And when it did, I was like, what would my colleagues do or say? I got really scared.
But what you are not hiding, obviously, is your face. So you are a professor at university. They know, your students and your colleagues, they know that you are a best-selling author in
Well, if this actually is your face.
Yeah. Masks off.
This is my Scooby-Doo moment.
Yeah, yes. Oh my God, reveal.
Okay, so actually for like a whole year, they had no idea. And then And then they found out.
And then?
So my students sent me, it's actually on my Instagram if you guys want to check it out, because my students sent me this email telling me, we're on to you. And then there was a picture of like 3 of them, my 3 favorite students, holding my book. And I was like, oh no, oh my God.
But did you base any characters? Was it weird? Like,
no.
All
And
right.
you know, the book was written before I even started that job.
Yeah.
So no, they're
right.
safe and they're amazing. So
But
if
are they-
I would only base amazing characters on that.
right.
So no weirdness, hopefully.
Hopefully. But
And don't sue me, please. To my students. Don't
wrong
sue me.
country. Oh, all right.
so let's talk about your big passion, science, besides writing. Before you came in, I also asked Tarkan what he's feeling when he hears words like research or
And
lab.
I said great potential for romantic book.
Yeah.
A lot of emotions. That's what I said. It was the first thing that
No,
came to mind.
That's
Be
why I
honest.
got into science too. Look at us.
No.
I'm gonna be honest. I did not think about romance when I heard science as a word. It's not the first thing that comes to mind.
So, do you agree or disagree?
You know, I think there is a potential for romance everywhere and in every setting. And like the thing of academia and STEM academia, but also, you know, humanities academia, all sorts of academic settings, and just, I mean, I would say all sorts of work settings, you really kind of like your entire life sometimes is in those settings. So it's I would say that it's normal to, like, you know, you find love where you can find love and or friendship or whatever. So I think it makes sense to mix emotions and kind of more drier topics like, you know, Neurowissenschaft.
Neurowissenschaft. You know. And how sexy is Mr. Spock in your eyes?
Like the sexiest.
So so they know you very well, but you have to explain. You wrote an erotic fan fiction about Mr. Spock.
Okay, I wrote. This is factually incorrect. I wrote many erotic fanfictions.
Sorry.
About Mr. Spock.
Okay.
I would like to fact check.
So what is it about him?
Well, all sorts of things, really. I
is so
really
funny.
got into writing through fan fiction.
Yeah.
And Mr. Spock is just the best. I mean, he's the science officer of the Enterprise. He's the executive officer. He has very pointy, cute ears. He does that thing that I cannot.
No.
Same. I'm
You
like,
know,
I have
do
to
it with
like.
this hand, no chance.
Yeah. No, it's a whole.
Yeah. Streber.
Yeah.
You can marry me now.
And there is that vibe, like.
No, there is.
But this fan fiction, especially the one about Mr. Spock, it was kind of career boost for you. It was it was the beginning of something big.
It was, in the sense that I was initially writing Star Trek fanfiction, and then I went to the movies to watch a Star Wars movie, and I was like, I see fellow Raylos in the audience. And then I was like, you know what, actually, I'm into Star Wars now. Goodbye, Star Trek. No, I'm actually,
Bye-bye.
I still love Star Trek and Spock. But and then I started writing Star Wars fan fiction, and that's kind of how I met my agent, because my agent is an amazing, fantastic, huge nerd, and she reads fan fiction. This is my literary agent, and she kind of read my fan fiction, and she was like, you know, I think there is potential here for you know, publishing if you're interested, and that's how, you know, the writing of original things started. So
if we go back to science, your stories, I think it's important to mention, your stories are not only about love, but always about women in STEM, which means science, technology, engineering, and math. What is it that makes that topic so important for you to bring it up every time?
You know, it's mostly that it's really my lived experience. It's where I spent most of, my adult life. It was in academia, and the things that kind of were important to me, the problems that were more salient and more relevant to me were the ones that had to do with, being a woman in STEM, or just generally being in academia, or feeling like you're the worst because your paper didn't get published, stuff like that. That's kind of what I wanted to write about, and I wanted to write about it in a humorous way, because if I could laugh at it, then maybe it would hurt less. Yeah. that got really dark very quickly. But, in a way, I just kind of, I just think I wanted to talk about something that I felt like I knew,
And to combine it with great stories. So we have a lot of Ellie Hazelwood fans here. Yeah, if so, again.
I should turn to them.
Turn to them. If someone has a question,
now is the time.
Now is the time. Oh, yeah.
You were prepared for that moment your whole life.
Question. Yes, me. Here. Yeah.
That question actually just popped in my head, but have you ever sent a copy of The Love Hypothesis to Adam Driver?
Let's again retell that question for the audience that's watching us online, so they can hear it as well.
So,
have you, Mona?
No,
you go.
Could you?
Do you want to?
Okay, the question was, have I ever sent a copy of The Love Hypothesis to Adam Driver? And my answer is, it's very important to me that Adam Driver never knows that I exist. and that generally, like, I need to not be perceived by Adam Driver, because I feel like he would just know what is in my head, and that would be mortifying. So I like to think that Adam Driver and I live in different galaxies that will never overlap, except when, like,
to be honest, that sounds like the start of a really great love story.
Yeah.
They live in different galaxies. She doesn't want him to know that she exists. But love then finds a way.
Or he's like, oh, who is this creepy stuff?
Who is this creepy girl?
Either way, it could go either way.
Yeah, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hoping that I'm sorry, I have to, it's a reflex.
Yeah.
She said she's hoping that, never mind.
So, before you turn this year off, we have
from Adam Driver. No.
Hi, Adam. Hi.
Okay, we have some questions from the stream. Can you imagine writing in a different genre?
Well, okay, so I don't know that it's technically a different genre, but I do have a young adult book coming out next year, which I'm very excited about. It's still a romance story. It's still a rom-com, but I guess it's, a slightly different age group. I have thoughts of, like, writing mysteries and, like, thrillers every once in a while, but then I remember that I have no imagination, and I have when, like, you read a thriller and
tiny little problem.
A tiny little bit of problem, because I love, like, when you're watching a movie and there is a plot twist and you're like, oh my God, I never saw that coming, and I could never come up with anything like that. And so I want to, like, but will it happen? I don't know.
Maybe you should have a coffee with Karen Slaughter.
I would love that. I would love that.
So we have another question. What book are you currently working on? Maybe was that already the answer?
I wish. And actually, I just finished right before coming to Germany, a draft of my 4th adult book, which is going to be something a little bit different. I can't really talk about it very much because my editor hasn't approved it yet. So it's possible that I have to, like, just, flush it down the toilet and write another one. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. And I'm excited to talk about it. It's a book that I love very much, but, who knows what's going to happen.
So are you still excited what your editor is saying? So now you send it to her or him, and then...
Yeah, so usually what happens is that if I have an idea for a story, I will, I'll have an idea or multiple ideas, and then I'll talk about it with my editor and my agent, and I'll be like, what do you guys think? Because they know the market better than I do, and they are, it's their job, it's a craft, and they're really great at it. and they will approve it or not approve it. And then after I've written it, I send them the manuscript. Yeah, I hope they approve. So far, they've always approved it, but who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, so
All right.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I have one last question.
One last question?
Yeah.
All right, then your
Okay.
question.
Okay, my question. If someone is forcing you to choose between science and writing, what would you choose?
Well, you know, right now, I would probably choose writing just because.
Good answer in this
Setting
here.
Yeah, I think right now I probably choose writing because, you know, it's been so amazing. I got to I don't know, I've had all these stories in my head for so long, and I got to, you know, write them, and it's just being a privilege to share it with people. But it's a tough choice, you know.
So
yeah.
happy for you that you do not have to choose, and happy for us as well because you are combining your two passions in great results.
We
Thank
are
you
very
much.
excited about everything that's yet to come.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, looking forward to those
Thrillers.
fan fictions and thrillers.
There's more to say about Spa. I have more to say about
For sure.
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you very
so much for
Can
coming.
I ask for? Can I just say hi to my mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Watching this. Hi.
Let's this camera maybe here. The two.
Hi.
You see the
That's it.
Hi,
That's all I need
Alice.
to say.
Hey.
Hi.
Her name is.
No,
Her name is Krista. Hi, Krista.
Hi, Krista.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ellie Hazelwood. That was great. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ich glaube nicht unerheblich an dieser Stelle einmal zu erwähnen, vor allem für die Menschen hier im Saal, dass auch Ellie Hazelwood später noch signieren wird, dann auch die richtigen Bücher, wie wir hier unser Mix and Match mit den ganzen Büchern, es tut uns leid, passiert, aber auch dieses Buch ist ja grandios.
Auch dieses Buch.
Auch dieses
wir haben jetzt schon uns auch gegenseitig sehr viele Fragen gestellt.
Ja, ist mir auch aufgefallen.
Ich würde
Wir haben uns
die
immer wieder
Tradition
Fragen gestellt hier heute Abend.
gerne aufrechterhalten und dich eine Frage, aber wir haben nicht mehr so viel Zeit, deswegen mache ich es kurz. Eine ganz einfache Frage. Bist du glücklich und was ist Glück? Bitte in zwei Worten antworten.
Boah. Jetzt holst du die ganz kleinen Fragen hier raus zum Schluss.
Haben
Ne?
nicht mehr so viel
Ja, wir
Zeit.
haben nicht mehr so viel Zeit. Ja, deswegen, André, ich weiß es nicht. Du, in 2 Worten?
2 Worten.
Keine Ahnung.
Fair enough, nicht schlecht. Ich auch nicht so wirklich, aber vielleicht unser nächster Gast. Denn sie hat schon sehr viel über das Leben, über Glück, über Menschsein allgemein geschrieben. Auf Instagram postet sie immer mal wieder Auszüge aus ihren Arbeiten und aus ihren Aussätzen und ist damit sehr, sehr erfolgreich. Außerdem hat sie auch schon 2 Bücher herausgebracht. Eins davon ist das hier, 101 Essays, die dein Leben verändern. Und jetzt ist sie hier. Herzlich willkommen, BRIANNA WIEST. Also sorry, sie ist hier. BRIANNA WIEST. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for a second there.
He wished.
Yeah, I'm kind of crushed right now, but it's all right. Maybe you have a great advice for me how to deal with that emotion of being crushed. Yeah, but you write a lot about self-realization, like you write a lot about life. How did that start? Not life, but writing about it.
So life started the day I was born.
Yeah. Right.
And writing about it started, I would say, probably in my late teens. I had, I guess you could call a mental health crisis. And in therapy, journaling became one of the biggest techniques that I used in my own healing journey. And to make a long story very short, I ended up sharing a lot of that work online, and then it just kind of became all of this, and now I'm here now.
And when you first shared that work online, I mean, it's not really personal in the sense that you write. I mean, it's personal in a way, and I feel like you're being very vulnerable. Were you afraid the first time you published it, and are you still like, how did you deal with the emotion of, all right, I'm going to write something that comes from my heart and that's about life and just do with it what you want? Wasn't that really scary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary basically every day, to be honest.
Oh, still.
You do get used a little, still for sure. But I mean, you get more used to it over time. And what makes it better and what makes it, I would say, probably easier now than it was 10 years ago is that what I know for sure is other people out there actually are having the same experience or something similar, or it can resonate, or it can touch them or be helpful in some way. And for me, that is so powerful and meaningful that it helps me feel less insecure. But I would say that everything that I've ever written has been very, very vulnerable and very personal. And it definitely is another, level of putting yourself out there to share your most intimate thoughts, and especially thoughts that you kind of cohered together while you were on your own healing journey. It's a very personal thing for sure.
And do you follow your own advice, or do you sometimes like read an older piece and go like, whoa, that's pretty smart. I should think that way. I should do that.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite, like, what? No, that's wrong. I hope nobody.
Wasn't me.
I do my best to follow my own advice each day.
Yes. You mentioned that you mentioned your readers. What does your relationship to your readers look like? Because it is pretty personal, right?
Yeah, I would say that I'm so grateful to have a really incredible community. I feel like it's more like a community that I've been building for all of these years. And, I get messages that turn into conversations, people sharing, intimate things about their own lives and their journeys. And, they do as much for me as I think, I hope I would do for them. So to me, it's more of a community, and I feel so grateful to be so received and held and supported by them.
That's pretty interesting to hear that you get a lot out of that reaction as well, because it seems like a lot of people look to you for advice. And who do you go to if you like struggle with stuff? Who do you ask for advice?
Well, it's interesting because definitely in I think it started actually as a teenager. Books really formed and changed not only who I am, but my entire life. And I would say that my mentors and teachers, and I do have a number of them who are people I know in person, but I would say if I could use one name in particular, Cheryl Strayed was a huge inspiration to me. And if you have not read Tiny Beautiful Things, put it next on your list because, oh, wow.
Okay.
And what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, or the best thing you've read about life? Is there something you have in mind, like where you say, yeah, that's pretty profound? Yeah. Can you share it with us?
It's that. No, I'm just going to ponder it. Yes, I would have to say that your discomfort is an ally, that it is a friend, that the discomfort inside of you is not always a sign that something within you is fundamentally broken or unworthy or not good enough. But sometimes it's actually a sign that something deep inside of you knows you are meant for more, you are capable of more, going to do more. And it's trying to move you from where you are to where you're meant to be.
Well, I have nothing to add.
Yeah, no, me as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, while we are already talking about advice and life, do you have anything written that you would like to share with us right now?
I do. So I have a new book of daily meditations coming out next spring, and I thought it would be a really great time to share with you the first page.
Of course.
Yeah, great.
Would we like that?
It's short, don't worry.
Yes, we would.
That's a clear yes.
So this is unreleased. What we will hear.
Unreleased,
Unreleased.
and the official announcement and pre-order will come out on Sunday.
All right.
So 2 days.
Ooh.
Okay.
The courage with which you enter today will become the fate that you meet tomorrow. Will you continue to replay the memories of yesterday, or will you meet the moment and make the most of what is in front of you right now? Not so that you might force your will upon your fate, but arrive fully into each moment as it's presented to you. Not to build a clean one-line story, but to create a mosaic of experience, ever forming, ever unfolding, ever unfolding. As what is within unravels into reality, revealing at last the fragment of the universe that came to be known through you at this exact time, in this exact place, in this exact form. You are exactly where you need to be. Today is the perfect day to start your life again.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And also, thank you so much for joining us. BRIANNA WIEST.
Thank you for being part of Bookstock.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Ja, guck mal, da sind alle Sofas wieder leer jetzt hier.
Ja, war auch
die
ein schön
virtuellen und die echten.
inspirierendes Ende. Ich bin froh, dass wir damit geendet sind und nicht mit, ich will meine Geschwister umbringen.
Oder dem Riesenmonster.
War ein guter Spannungsbogen, fand ich, denn wir kommen nun auch zum Ende von Tag 1 aber nur.
Komm, wir machen das richtig.
Wir machen das ganz offiziell.
Stehen auf.
Im Stehen.
Haben wir auch lange gesessen hier. Ah, wirklich?
The discomfort is your ally.
Ja, genau. Feeling it. Ja, das war tatsächlich Tag 1 vom Bookstock Festival. Wir hoffen, dass ihr genauso viel Spaß hattet wie wir. Was war dein Highlight? Was würdest du sagen?
Oh, das ist jetzt sehr schwer. Also ich fand schon ziemlich verrückt, dass Ben AARONOVITCH einfach hier war. So nachdem man so viel Zeit, also ich zumindest, mit seinen Büchern verbracht hat, dass er dann daneben einsitzt. Und HAZELWOOD war auch verrückt. Ich wusste nicht bis gerade, ob sie wirklich existiert, ehrlich gesagt. Immer so leichte Zweifel, aber das war schon verrückt.
Sie war da. Ja, und ich finde es halt so cool und das macht diese gesamte Veranstaltung, finde ich, auch aus, dass man in so viele verschiedene Bereiche reingeht. Ne? Also wir waren heute im Romance-Bereich, wir waren im Fantasy-Bereich, wir haben über krude Monster gesprochen, das schlimmste Monster, was du bisher gelesen hast, sozusagen. Und genau das machen wir einfach dann morgen nochmal.
Ja, also
mit anderem Line-Up.
Teasen, welche Headliner morgen auftauchen?
Auf jeden Fall.
Patrick Rothfuss, heute schon mehrfach
Haben wir schon
genannt.
angesprochen.
Tess Gerritsen und Neil Schustermann, Jay Christoph und Janine Frost werden dabei sein. Unter anderem noch mehr, ne?
Dann Romy Hausmann, großer Fan, wird dabei sein. Bianca Iosivoni, Laura Kneidl und noch der Schauspieler Dimitri Schad. Mit all denen werden wir sprechen über ihr Leben, über ihr Schreiben, über alles, was sie uns so erzählen. War ja heute auch ein paar Unwägbarkeiten dabei, die wir gar nicht vorher so planen konnten, aber genau so soll es ja auch sein und wir hoffen selbstverständlich, dass ihr dann wieder dabei seid. Ihr habt ja jetzt schon einmal den Weg hier zu uns gefunden, entweder live und in Farbe oder live und in
Stream.
Bildschirm dazwischen. Ja? Das machen wir morgen einfach nochmal ganz genauso und bis dahin
vielen lieben Dank fürs Zuschauen, vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis morgen.
Schönen Abend, bis morgen. Tschüss.